Hey everybody, today I am starting a personal project for myself. This is going to be an accessory that's going to go on the front of my Ram truck. And what I am building is a motorcycle carrier for the Monkey, the little Honda Monkey. I'm going to be building a bike carrier for that is going to be mounted right there on the front of the Ram. I've already got a receiver hitch mounted on the front, had that done about a month ago or so. It is actually a Kurt brand manufactured hitch, just like you would put on the rear of the truck, but it's designed for the front. It's mounted into the frame. We've already got that mounted in there. So it's a 2-inch receiver. So I'm going to be fabricating a bike carrier from scratch, from raw materials, to haul this little bike on. Okay. I've already gotten started on a couple of things. I've had the welding shop form up a channel for me. That's going to be the rail that the Monkey will be sitting on. I've got that inside. I'll show you guys a light mock-up here in just a minute. But this is how it's going to sit, on the front of the truck right here. It'll be elevated, of course. But let me move this guy back a little bit, and I will show you. There is the front mounted receiver hitch right there. So that guy is rated for 500 pounds tongue weight, and I cannot remember what the straight line pull was. I want to say it was like 12,000 pounds or something like that. This is a popular add-on for folks that want to mount like a portable winch or something. People will have a winch mounted onto a plate and a tube and mounted in there so that they have something that they can, a winch on the front. But I see other people that do the same thing, such as this right here, is front mounted motorcycles. And I got this idea to do this whenever we were out west last year, when we were out in Colorado and Utah, both places out there. There was a lot of areas that we were at when we were riding that I noticed that there was a lot of the guys that go riding that had their dirt bikes and dual sports mounted on the front of the truck here. And the reason that I saw other people doing it was because they were either hauling a big camper behind them and they had their bed full of other stuff, or a lot of guys have those big slide-in campers that sit in the bed of the truck. And a lot of those, whenever they're mounted in the back of the truck, extend back so far that you can't put a carrier on the back on the hitch there. So people will mount it on the front of the truck right there. There's a few videos on YouTube. I've watched all the ones that are available to me. I have read through the comments, and even a lot of them even say that the mounting of the bike in the front has not affected the engine cooling. That's what you're going to have a lot of people that are going to make comments about. Hey, your engine cooling is going to, go up because you're blocking the radiator. So my plan is, once we get this thing built, I am going to be testing it around town right here. We're going to mount it up. I'm going to drive around town with the Monkey on it. We're going to go down the interstate here. I'm going to do some testing to see how rigid it is and see if it's going to affect any of the cooling on the engine there. Okay, so I will let you guys know. But based off of a lot of the other comments, we already posted something over on Instagram. There's a lot of guys that chimed in that have a little more experience with this than me, and they said that you should have no problem with that radiator on that Ram pulling enough air through there to cool it. Shouldn't be a problem. So we'll see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give a little mock-up setup here to show you what we're going to be doing and what my idea of this design is going to look like. All right guys, so here is a very light mock-up of the idea of what I'm building right here. It is not centered. I just set it on there to balance it and got a clamp just to hold it in place. All right, there's more framework that's involved that I have not started yet. That's the next stage of the fabrication right now, but I'm going to catch you up to speed on where we're at on what I have already accomplished with this rail system on the bike carrier. Now this down here is the ramp that's going to attach to the back for loading, obviously. All right, so I had started off with a piece of channel iron. I had a piece of 4-inch channel iron that I thought would work, but ends up the tires were just too big to fit inside that channel. You would have had to go to 6-inch channel. So I ended up just calling my buddy Joe down at the welding shop, and had him form up a channel for me. So what this is 1/8. This is 1/8. Let me get out of the sun, the shadow there. So 1/8, 6" on the inside, 3" sides, because I wanted enough height there that would help kind of keep the bite captured in there. So the 3" goes up on the tire, so it's on the side of the tire there. All right. So whenever I had it, when I sketched it up, I said I wanted a 30-degree angle on this, and so they built it with a 30-degree angle, but it was 30 degrees from the bottom here, so it was sloped down way too far. I should have put 60 degrees on there, and just kind of messed up. So I've gone in there and I cut this out, both sides, and heated up, bent it, welded it back together using a TIG welder. I've got video of that we will go ahead and throw in there right now. So this is the 6" wide rail that I had the welding shop form up for me. That's going to be the rail for the bike carrier. And I specified the wrong angle on the print, so it was just a miscommunication there. I put 30 degrees and they made this to 30 degrees. What I actually should have put 60 degrees because of the way I had it drawn on there. So they did it according to the print, but I need to change the angle. So all I did was just cut out 30 degrees from the weld seam right there. This guy right there, just cut that out. I'm just gonna warm this right here and just bend it down, and then we'll re-weld it, and that should put it on the proper angle that I was shooting for anyway. So I already test fit the monkey on it over in the grass, and that looks like it's going to work out pretty good. I was almost going to just go ahead and cut this off a little bit shorter, but there's really no reason to bother. It doesn't need to come down much more than that, so I'm just going to leave it like it is. Now this side right here, we've already got this done, and what I have done, I went to the milling machine and I milled a 1/4" slot in this right here. And my plan is I've got a piece of 1-inch angle iron that I'm going to weld to the bottom of the ramp. It's going to overhang just a little bit so that you can take that ramp and just stick it right in that slot right there, and it'll stay right where it's at. It won't go side to side and slide off, and it won't fall back this way. All right, so here's the piece of angle iron, piece of 1-inch angle. It's going to be welded to the bottom of the end of the ramp right there. It's going to stick out just a little bit, and then you'll be able to come in here and just stick it right down in that slot, just like that. Won't go anywhere, won't slide out side to side or forward or back. So that's going to work out pretty good for that right there. I coped all the ends just to kind of dress it up so it didn't look so square and pointy. Cut these off at a 45-degree angle. I did the same thing on the ramp right here. Now, let me just set this up there. That may be a little bit long for what I need. And once I get through building this thing and it's all finished up, I'm going to determine if I want to cut this off and make it a little bit shorter, because it doesn't have to be that long. I just had Joe make it 48 inches long. I was thinking maybe it only need to be three foot long. So if need, I'll cut that end off. That's not a problem at all. And then I'm probably going to end up building this out of a more square looking frame. So I'm going to be coming off here somewhere with some more of this 2-inch. By the way, this is 3/16 wall, 2-inch square. I'm going to come off of this and down to support this outer end. Same thing on this side. It's going to come down and underneath this, and the tube is going to come all the way across here so that I have a tie down area for the, I've got some weld on D-rings that I'm going to weld onto that tube for the tie down points on the front side and the back side. So we will have a framework in there. I'm kind of designing this as I go. I've been jotting some notes down, and I think this is going to work out just fine. Keep in mind, the Monkey is not a very heavy bike. It is only 300 pounds. It's actually a little bit under 300 pounds. All right. We're probably going to have, I don't know, 50 to 75 pounds worth of, carrier right here out of the materials that we're going to be using. So it should be well underneath the 500-pound tongue weight rated for that right there. All right, so I think I've caught you up to speed on what I'm doing right here. I'm going to go ahead and go in the shop. It's extremely hot out right now. It's about 95 degrees. So I love my air-conditioned shop. I've got the rest of the tubing and the materials in there. I'm going to start getting material cut, and we're going to start welding up a frame that this is going to be going on. All right. One thing that I forgot to mention, the ramp, I'm going to have the ramp so that it rides on the frame just like that. Probably not centered like this, maybe off to just one side. And the tubes will have, I'm going to have some pins sticking up and some holes drilled in the ramp. So all I got to do is pick it up, stick it down on the pins. I'm going to have linch pins to hold that in place. Okay, we've made it back inside the shop here, and I didn't have audio on this clip because my mic was muted. Seems to be happening quite frequently. But what I'm showing you is that I'm using the floor of the shop here to kind of lay out the way the ramp is going to look and start getting some measurements. So I'm talking about the center support there, the main piece that's going to go into the hitch, getting it positioned where it needs to be positioned, get the rail on there, and then take some measurements for the outer parts of the frame there, measuring how long they're going to be. At this point, I'm not sure exactly how long they're going to be, and coming around to weld onto the center piece there. But what I decided to do was make the frame equal the wheel span of the monkey there. So I measured where the center of the axles are, made a mark. Okay, what I'm pointing at there is how far out that frame is going to stick for the weld-on D-rings that I plan on putting on there for your tie-down points. So the frame is going to be underneath the wheels, right at the center line of the axle, and I think that's going to give the entire structure there plenty of support. You know, plus with the rail will be welded to those tubes as well. I even pulled the straps out. Wanted to just kind of visually see what everything was going to look like. You know, where are the straps going to be whenever they're hooked into the D-rings, making sure we had adequate clearance. So I decided on that outward side to bring it out 8 inches past the rail. The other thing that I'm showing there is the placement of the ramp itself. I plan on having it sitting on the frame right there as you see it. Going to have a couple pins coming through the tubes, and you'll be able to set the ramp down on there and have some linch pins to hold it in place. And I think that's going to work pretty good for that. So I'm talking about the grill of the truck. Not sure exactly, you know, how far out this has got to stick so that the bite clears once you tie it down. But we're going to do some mock-ups and make sure that we get this figured out. Now that we got the carrier looking about the way we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and mark the location for the pin for the hitch itself. What I'm pointing out there is the plastic air valence that's underneath the truck there, and how the pin location happens to be dead center in line with that plastic, but it's not a big deal because you can just push it back with your finger and stick the pin in there. So I cut the main tube there long enough so that it actually comes all the way to the back of the hitch, so it's fully supported through the entire piece there. And what I'm using is a transfer punch. It's a 5/8 transfer punch, or I believe that one's 41/64. Stick it in the hole, give it a tap, and that will mark your location of where you want your hole. And then once we go to the milling machine to drill the hole, I'll actually center up on the center of that 2-inch piece of tubing. It's just a punch mark tells me where I want that hole to be. We've made it over to the milling machine, and it's time to get our hole drilled through there. What I'm showing you is that I've got a couple of drills that I've been trying out from KBC Tools. These are the new Viking Vortex drill bits. They're ground like a step drill on the end of it. So if you're using these drills, you know, a lot of people have to hand drill things out in the field. You can't really go to the machine. And I believe that's where these drill bits here are really going to shine. They don't require as much pressure or force to push the drill through the hole as you're cutting. The center of it is ground like a center drill. It has a small center there, got a split point, got a small web, and then the flutes are ground like a step drill behind that. And a step drill is made so that you can drill incremental hole sizes with a very short drill and doesn't require a lot of pressure. So that's how these drill bits are designed. So I've been using it for a couple of jobs, to seeing how it works out. They've got the 3 flats on there so that if you want to mount that into a hand drill, you know, the chuck, it doesn't spin on you. But you can use those flats in the milling machine there as well. But I'm going to use this drill to drill a 1/2-inch hole down through the center of that. I was going to show you what it looked like using it. And then this is the other one that I've got as well. This is the 1/4 inch. That Viking drill worked great, putting that 1/2-inch hole through there. So now we're going in with the 41/64 drill bit, and this is going to be your finish size. This will give you adequate clearance for that 5/8 pin to slide through there. That'll give you approximately 15 thousandths, maybe just a little bit more than that, so that you're not wrestling with that pin to try to get it through the hole there. We just put a brand new spool of wire over on the Miller-Matic. This right here, ER70 S6 035 solid wire. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a spray with the Welding nozzle clean here, kind of help protect it a little bit from the spatter. Same thing on the nozzle here as well. So I want to go ahead and weld the angle iron to the end of the ramp here, so when we're doing our testing, that will be done. Well, there we go. Not the prettiest welds, but I think that'll suffice right there. All right, we're doing our first official mock-up with the monkey here. I'm really excited about this. It's starting to come together. It's starting to look pretty good. And so far, everything is working, especially our ramp. This may end up just staying the same length that we got right there because it seems to be working just fine. But we will cross that bridge later. So we have the rail just sitting on the tube. I tried to use a C-clamp, but I just couldn't get the monkey, past the C-clamp. So we've got two simplex screw jacks underneath there supporting both ends, and just chalked up the center here for the kickstand. And by the way, while I'm talking about this is one of my other ideas too, was maybe welding something on here that comes off, a little pad just for this to sit in, so that whenever we go to put the bike on, I can put the kickstand down and just set it there while I go and I get the straps ready and pull it down. But that's another thing that's been on my mind. We'll worry about that later. I started off with the rail centered on that center tube there, but what I ended up doing was marking it 2 inches, and I shifted it that way 2 inches just to kind of help center this line of sight with the headlight of the truck. The front, the tall part of the monkey here. Same thing on the back. These are my low beams out here. High beams are in there. So you shouldn't have that much obstruction of the light. So that's why I moved this in. The other reason why I moved it too was because this end of the ramp seemed like it was out here just a little bit. So by moving it 2 inches, we centered this more evenly with the edge of the truck. Same thing on this side. When you look at the end of the ramp here, it's sort of like right in line with the truck there. So it's offset 2 inches this way, but our framework will stay on the same center lines that I designed it. We're going to be center lined on the axle right here. It's just our framework that we're going to use back here. It's going to be an extra 2 inches on this side, less 2 inches on this side. Okay, so that is looking good. Let me go ahead and explain another thing that I've got in mind that I'm going to do to help stabilize this. For one, we're going to be using an anti-rattle hitch bolt underneath there. We're not going to be using a pin. So they got 2 styles. I've actually got it on order. One's going to be it's like a bolt that goes through. There's a nut that goes on the inside of the tube, and you tighten it up and it actually pulls that insert tight against there. There's another one that's like a U-bolt and a flat plate that you clamp around the two, and that keeps it from shaking and rattling. So I've got 2 of those things on order. We're going to probably use those. But here's what I've been thinking. Utilize this framework that we're going to have welded to that center tube right there, coming across over. All right, you see these tow hooks that are mounted on the front of my truck? We got one on each side. So what I am thinking is that we can build some type of turnbuckle maybe, or even look into some kind of strap system that might be commercially available, and have the frame, I'm going to have the frame coming over and across here in front of the bumper a little bit, so that we can actually hook from here down to the frame on both sides and tighten it up, and that will help give it that side to side support there. So it'll be actually, you know, kind of anchored in 3 places. I've got some of these straps, you know, these are your typical motorcycle straps right here, but like this is going to be too long even with it pulled all the way in there. But this is kind of the idea, is something like this right here that's going to come down and hook to the frame. I'll have another eye welded right there, so I'm probably going to have to come up with something. I'll probably have to build something with a hook like this that will hook into this, hook into the frame, and maybe kind of like a tie rod, so you have a left and a right hand thread tube that you can come down here with your hand and just tighten it up, you know, hand tighten it till it's snug, and that should be all you need. So if I can't find something that's commercially available, we may just find some hooks and then machine a tube and go that route there. And that's another reason why we're doing all this test fitting. This isn't just something that you just take a few measurements and you weld it all together, because it's never going to end up exactly what they want unless you mock it up and test it. And as you go forward, you're finding all these things that you can do to kind of help the build that you don't initially think of right off the bat. All right, so I think that's about where we're at there. I'm going to get some more measurements, you know, where I want the cross piece welded at. We're going to do some measurements here. I'm going to write it down on my notes. I'm going to start getting some of this tubing cut up, see about getting this frame welded together. I want to get it welded, or like I said, tacked heavily, so that the whole thing is together. We can install it and check everything and see how it's going to work out. And once we know that we've got it where we want it, then we'll go ahead and finish welding it out completely.